Now, let's say you have a spouse as your primary beneficiary of your TSP. If something happens to you, you know your spouse is going to get this TSP. Great, your spouse can be what's called a TSP beneficiary participant. That means they're allowed to stay with the TSP. Great. However, if they don't take quick action, they have a certain time frame, certain window, 60 to 90 days, where if they don't take any action to roll that over into, an IRA or an annuity or, spousal inherited, situation, they're locked in with the TSP and they can't do any more rollovers going forward. They can only take withdrawals.
And by going forward, you mean the rest of their natural life.
Yeah.
So the spouse is stuck with the deceased spouse's TSP if the surviving spouse doesn't take action within 60 to 90 days.
Yep.
Now, anyone who's lost a spouse or a close family member probably knows you're not emotionally, mentally prepared for, signing your name at the bottom of, a McDonald's receipt, not to mention like doing paperwork for, something like a TSP decision. Within 60 to 90 days of your beloved spouse passing away, what does this mean? Give us, what does this imply for us?
So if they didn't take action, then the only thing they can do is take withdrawals, and those withdrawals would be taxed, right?
Yeah.
And then they don't have the ability to move it somewhere where there's a tax-free rollover, where they could choose different investment options. They could choose an annuity to, replace maybe what they lose from your pension, whatever kinds of situations they need. Now they're stuck, and they can only leave it there and take taxable withdrawals of any traditional funds that are in there.
And if they leave it in there, tell me, are these, G and I and, all these L funds, these are the top shelf investment choices, just premier investment options, the best things that we've ever seen in the investment space, I assume. These are, incredible places to keep our money, right?
Well, they're an option on the smorgasbord of options, right? Everybody seems to love their S&P 500 index. If you love that, then maybe you would like the C fund. But like if you love bonds and you're like, okay, I want bonds instead of US Treasuries, there's only one Bloomberg bond index for the F fund.
Yeah.
There's so many other bond indexes out there. Who knows how Bloomberg's going to do, right? Or even exist in 30 years.
Right. Yeah, it's like, you've really locked in if your spouse who survives you doesn't make this important decision within 60 to 90 days, they are stuck in the color by number, retail, amateur, buy it at the mall investment products, where you're overpaying, the fees you mentioned were high, you're underperforming the market, and you're stuck in the, basically the alphabet soup of retirement funds, and it frustrates the heck out of me. When you told me this the first time, my jaw dropped, and it's still on the floor.
Yeah. Are you ready for what happens if you have a non-spousal beneficiary?
Okay, so this would be anyone besides your surviving spouse, like an adult child or grandchildren or a friend or charity or whatever. Okay, I'm ready.
Yeah. So remember, spouses are the only ones that can be TSP beneficiary participants. Anyone else is not allowed to participate in the TSP. And so then what this means, if they don't take action with that same kind of window, 60 to 90 days, right? You're on a race against the TSP administrators. They'll just get a check for the balance of your TSP. If you have $1 million in there, they would get $1 million check. All the traditional amounts of that would be taxable. Or if you've had that Roth for less than 5 years, right? There's all those taxes that are then due on your contributions there.
So you just said it's a bad thing to get a check for $1 million, Amanda. You're going to really have to walk me real slow through this jungle here.
Yeah. So let's say you have a 401k instead. In those situations, most of the time, if you have a non-spousal beneficiary, let's just say your adult child is going to inherit that, they're able to roll that over into an inherited IRA, or even potentially leave that with the 401k if they need to for longer, right? Maybe wait 6 months to make any moves, maybe see what, file your last tax return, see if they're going to owe any taxes, right? They're able to take their time. And then the the current rules are they have about 10 years to take that money out, and they can spread that tax burden. So if that $1 million, $100,000 a year,
Yep.
or they could wait and be like, this year, I have dependents right now, but in 5 years I'm not going to have dependents. I'm going to take more and then take less later.
In order to really minimize your tax burden, you get to be a bit more bespoke or nuanced in terms of how you make those distributions, pulling a chunk of money each year out of your, inherited 401k funds or an inherited IRA funds.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Okay. And if they're able to take that, window of opportunity, that 60 to 90 days, and move the TSP funds, they can move it to somewhere where they can still take it out over 10 years and have all those advantages. But they're probably also grieving, right? They're probably dealing with things. Maybe even, I had somebody recently that waited 4 months for a death certificate, right? Like, who knows? Thankfully, their spouse, or the person they're waiting for the death certificate for, was not a federal employee. We didn't have to worry about the TSP. But like, if they know the person's died, they don't have to wait for the death certificate potentially to make this move, right? And then, also, like, how savvy are some of our adult children? Or, right, like, are they going to know if we don't tell them, right? A lot of families don't talk about money.
Right.
Are they going to be thinking about this among the hundreds of other things they have to handle
Exactly.
when somebody passes away? It's pretty scary for me.